What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Bimmer Barn. Today we're going to be doing one of my most requested E39 mods, and that is a rear view camera retrofit. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into the video. So in a previous episode, we installed the E39 Android head unit into my E39 wagon, and that was a great upgrade. It helped improve the quality of the sound system, as well as add a ton of functionality, Bluetooth features, maps, and stuff like that. But one of the things that the kit came with is functionality for an added rear view camera, and we have the rear view camera that we're going to be installing today. It's got the wires, everything should be plug and play. So what I think that we're going to have to do first is test it into the radio. We want to get an idea of the orientation so that we know how to install the bracket for the camera, and then we're gonna have to route the wires through the car in order to get it from the radio in the front to the license plate in the rear. So let's go ahead now and remove the radio so we can test the camera. So here we can see the harness for the radio itself, and we've got an entire accessory harness where you can do audio in, audio out, video in, video out, microphone, and one of these here is going to be the camera input. So yellow is going to be video, and you can see it says camera, and when we look at the wiring diagram, that one tells us it's the rear view camera. So that is where it's going to be optically connected, so the video feed is going to go in. However, we do need to get the power to the camera in order to tell the radio when the car is going into reverse, because as you can see, the camera connects to these two harnesses. One of them is just going to be the video cable that goes to the radio, and one of them is the power. And according to the instructions, you should power the camera by the reverse light signal. So the same exact power signal that goes to the bulbs is where you would tap in. It's not going to need a lot of power to get this little camera running. So what I think we're going to do is connect the optical cable and the power cable, but instead of attaching this to the rear lights yet, we're going to go ahead and power it by this 9-volt battery. I think it should be enough to trick the car to think that we're going into reverse, and we should be able to get a live feed of the camera and just determine which direction. I think it's going to end up going like this. I just want to make sure that we get the camera in the right orientation before we get it drilled into my hatch. So let's go ahead and test this thing out.
Many hours later.
All right, so we spent a couple minutes there testing different configurations of the camera input cables, because when I put the camera into the camera cable right here, which is for the rear view, and we had it powered, I couldn't get it to actually show the image on the screen. So no matter what app I was in inside of the radio, or if I was powering this signal wire here, or if I had the car in reverse, which, you know, I do have the CAN bus decoder, this thing right here, and it allows the car to communicate with the radio, and I can use the steering wheel controls and such. But that is supposed to pull the signal from the reverse, from the CAN bus, and it should make the radio show up with that camera input. So I couldn't get that to work, but then I tried putting the input into the video in, and then I went to the AV in app on this radio here, and I was able to view the camera. So I guess, you know, that's one kind of workaround. And then I also went and tested this you know, dash camera right here, which is pretty cool. And this one just has a USB connection, so it goes into the back of the radio here, and you would just, I guess, stick it up there, and that one worked as well. It was really easy. So we might even, you know, go ahead and install this as well today, kind of give us some cool driving footage in the future. Might get to see that in an upcoming video. But anyways, I sent an email to E39 about this issue to see if there's some sort of feature I need to enable on the radio to make the backup camera work. But in the meantime, we might just hook it up to the video in, and that way we can just use it when we want to, and that way it wouldn't be activated by the reverse. But in the future, when we get that feature to work, we can just make a little change in the back of the harness here and then get that feature enabled. So let's go ahead now and get this little camera installed in the back of the hatch. So back here is obviously where we want the camera to be installed, and the manual shows us to put it right above the license plate. So I found a little spot here between the handle and the license plate lights, and I think that should be enough room to get this camera mounted up. Now, I just recently replaced all this stuff because I wanted to get this camera mounted up. It was all cracked and crumbling away before, so it's nice and strong, ready to install today. If you do have an E39 sedan though, I would really recommend getting one of the replacement license plate lights that has a camera built into it. Unfortunately, they don't work for the touring because they have a different license plate light setup, but for the sedans they have one, and you don't have to drill into anything. You would just replace one of those lights and then you have the camera. Now the hardest part about this install is going to be getting the wires through the hinges that are up here. They're pretty difficult and tight, and they're known for these wires to start rubbing up against each other because there's just not so much room. So we have to be really careful tucking. We're gonna go right through here, through the chassis, and then through the headliner all the way to the front of the car, down the pillar, and then into the center dashboard to get to the radio. And that is how you're gonna route this thing. Probably the easiest way if you can manage to do it. Otherwise, you're gonna have to go below the carpet, through side panels and such, and it's gonna require a lot of clips. So I think that's gonna be our best bet, running under the headliner. So let's go ahead now and start disassembling the trunk and see if we can get this camera wire routed all the way to the front of the car. So I've got the camera wires routed along this way, and you'll see that the power wire is done. That's hidden behind the hatch here, and I just tapped into these two wires. One of them is yellow and red. That usually tells you that it's going to be a key position to power, and it goes to this electrical connector right here, and it was disconnected, you know, when I removed this, so I might have some missing functionality. I'm not sure what this is for, but it does power on when the key goes to position 2, so that's perfect, exactly what we wanted for the camera. And the other connector that we have left is this very, very slim one that goes for the optical cable, and that's gonna have to route through the hatch here. Then there's a weather plug where this entire harness goes through, and it has one on each side where it comes out of the trunk and underneath this exterior window right here. But you'll see that the harness comes through this little weather plug, up the side of the hatch here, and then into the hinge right there, and through that little dust cover, and then through the trunk as well. Let me show you what it looks like from the inside. You may have seen a previous episode where we replaced the trunk struts, and I showed you guys a DIY how to do that. But now if we go ahead and remove the speakers, we see that the harnesses come through right here, and that way they come into the car. And we'll probably just splice our optical cable through this weather plug and then have it come underneath the headliner and between the frame, and then route underneath the headliner all the way to the front of the car. So what we're gonna do is gonna go ahead and cut a little hole in here, get the small end of the optical cable through, and then start routing it all the way to the camera. So with some heavy persuasion and realistically just patience, I was able to get that digital cable through the same weatherproof wire harness, you know, protector that we have right here, and so that makes it a really clean OEM install. We'll just continue to follow this harness all the way up the trunk, and if you're wondering what it looks like from here in the speaker, you'll see again, this is the harness that goes into the trunk strut area. This is the digital cable, and then where all the speaker wires come through, right there, you'll see that there is another weatherproof rubber grommet right here for the harnesses. So routed it through there so that it's now between the headliner and the frame, and now we can easily route it all the way up to the front of the car, down the pillar, and to our radio. So let's finish up with the camera cable up through the hatch here, and then we'll finish with the headliner. So now I've got the rear view camera routed basically right under the headliner right here. Kind of an easy way for us to tuck it all the way up and over to this pillar, routed down this cable right here. I also went ahead and installed the front view camera. So you see that little one right here, and that is running down here. They both go right above the fuse panels right here, routed underneath and then to the radio. And here you can see that we have our live feed of our rear view camera. So that is a live feed rear view. Go ahead, and it's gonna come from this AVIN app right here. So you can put any sort of video in, video out and stuff, and that is the app that's gonna control it. And then for the front view camera, you've got this DVR app, and as you can see, that is our front view right there. Nice high quality picture. And I don't have an SD card inserted right now, but if I did, I could go ahead, tap that button and start a recording. So we might test that later, get a good idea of how it works. But I'm super happy. And you know, cool thing about adding the reverse camera through this app is that now if I'm on the highway, you know, I can look behind me and see if someone's tailgating, which is a pretty cool feature. Something that you wouldn't be able to enable if, for example, it was only hooked up to the reverse camera feed. So we'll go ahead and finish up with the install, finish tucking in everything, and then we'll get a final look at the installed product and a little test drive. So that's going to conclude our video for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching and hopefully learned something about retrofitting a rear view camera in your E39, whether it's a sedan or a touring like mine. Obviously, you have to have the radio equipped first. That's going to be compatible with the reverse camera, and then you have to do that wiring through the headliner and through the trunk, which is probably the most intense part of this install. But I hope you guys learned a couple tips and tricks, and I'm still waiting on an update from the manufacturer of the radio to see how I can get the reverse function to work. And once I do, I will be sure to update the description below for those of you with the same radio as me, and I'll go ahead and put links to both these cameras as well as the radio down in the description so you guys can check this out. But anyways, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like or a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't yet, and as always, I hope everyone has an amazing day. We'll see you next time.